Broadcasting live from the North Fulton Business RadioX studio, it's time for To Your Health with Dr. Jim Morrow. To Your Health is brought to you by Morrow Family Medicine, an award-winning primary care practice, which brings the care back to healthcare.
Hello, welcome to what I think is episode 79, I wouldn't swear to that, of To Your Health with Dr. Jim Morrow. I am Jim Morrow, a family physician here in North Georgia, and I've been doing this podcast for 2+ years, I guess it is, and I am just thrilled to be with you again. I appreciate so much anyone that will listen to what I have to say and to, on occasion, what my guests have to say. So today we are in our usual situation, our usual cadence here. I'm in my office studio, which I've blurred the background of, but we're not doing video today, John, so it doesn't matter. And you can't see that when you're listening, so it doesn't matter. And my producer, John Ray, is in the studio at the Renaissance Bank on Windward Parkway in Alpharetta. John, How are you?
I'm doing great. And this is episode number 80.
So, is it really?
Yeah. Okay. So kudos to you. I mean, it's been a great run and a great series, and we get great feedback on this show. So thank you for all that you bring to it every time.
It has been a great thing for me. I must have slept through one episode. I don't remember that one. But,
that must be the episode on sleep apnea, right? So
there you go. And I have continued to be amazed at the number of people that say to me, listen to your podcast on this, I want to talk to you about that or whatever. And it's been a real great experience. And I'm glad that Peggy listened to you and talked me into doing this, because I think it's been a lot of fun. I've been starting most of these with a COVID update of some sort. I don't have a lot to talk about. I want to say two things. Number one, Omicron is not milder. We're losing 500 people a day across the country to COVID. So please be vaccinated. And that's the second thing, is about vaccines. There is a new bivalent, it's called, vaccine that has the original ancestral RNA from the original virus, and also RNA from BA4 and 5, the most recent variants. And so this vaccine is going to help you avoid serious illness even better when you have an infection with one of the variants. So if you're vaccinated, I encourage you to get that booster, quote unquote, with the variants. If you're not vaccinated, I encourage you to get vaccinated. I've tried to stop having the big argument with people because it just doesn't go anywhere mainly, but it also just doesn't generate much of a great physician-patient relationship. So I try not to argue about it, but I hope you will get vaccinated. I think the science is clearly there that we do need to do that. So I'm very glad today that we do have a guest today, and this is a guest that John Ray met and found and introduced me to, and I'm very, very glad to have Joan White from the Lighthouse Lymphedema Network in Roswell with us. Joan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it was a great thing when John mentioned this to me, because the problem that you're helping people deal with is something that we run into in family medicine weekly, at least. And it can be a tremendous problem. It is a tremendous problem. And sometimes it's just insurmountable. But more often than not, if people do some different things, some of the right things, they can have a much better quality of life than what they've been dealing with. So, Joan, if you would take a few minutes and tell us about the Lighthouse Lymphedema Network.
Well, it started about 30 years ago around a table in my kitchen. And we had three patients, a massage therapist, and a occupational therapist. And we sat there and we decided that there had to be a lot more patients out there. We just didn't know how to reach them because there was no internet. There wasn't all this possibility for us to be able to reach out to patients. Well, eventually we have grown. We have a board now of almost 25 people. We have, over the years, developed, we have a newsletter we send out every quarter. We have a website, which we are quite proud of. And annually, we do a medical conference, which is for patients, caregivers, family members, and the medical professionals. And we invite speakers from all over the country and sometimes the world to come that are experts in lymphedema knowledge in the lymphatic disease. And we also have what we call a bandage and garments fund, because we found that there are patients that are underserved and they need to have these garments and bandages and other products to have a better quality of life.
No doubt. And with the conference, I noticed in your comments here that the conference is focusing on your children in lymphedema camp. Tell me about that.
Well, this year, we decided that the children that have lymphedema are really underserved. And so we have a person coming to explain about children lymphedema. There's a camp that was started, I believe, this year called Camp Watch Me, and it's in Colorado. And we actually had one of our therapists go out there and work with the patients. And she came back and she said it was the best thing that she'd ever done in connection with lymphedema was to help these children. So we always focus on breast cancer a little bit because we get a grant from It's the Journey. And this grant is usually around $20,000. And this helps us to purchase bandages and garments and other things for our patients that are underserved.
Well, that's incredible. And I hate to hear about any child having to deal with lymphedema. And before we get too deep into this, why don't you give us a definition of what we're talking about when we say the word lymphedema?
Well, lymphedema is like a chronic medical condition that is developed from a blockage in the lymphatic system. And it's actually preventing the lymph fluid from draining well. And this is resulting in sometimes painful swelling, most often to the arms from the breast cancer. And then men who have prostate cancer, their legs will swell up. And my mother had breast cancer, arm lymphedema. My dad had prostate cancer, and he had lymphedema in his legs.
Wow. And there's a big difference between the swelling you might get in a leg from a blockage in the lymphatic system versus a blockage in a vein.
Yes.
And so can you make a distinction there for us?
Well, some people have what we call vascular edema, and that's not lymphedema. And lymphedema is part of the lymphatic system. And I think was ignored. Because I've had this so long and I've gone to a lot of conferences, I believe that the lymphatic system was ignored too long. And now it's kind of like the buzz thing now to get people to do some research.
I would agree with that. And I can tell you from experience with my own patients, and most people can tell you this as well, that when you have a problem with the veins and the venous flow from the feet back to your body, you can lay down and prop your legs up, and that can get a lot better.
Right.
But the lymphatic system, this consists of not veins, but lymphatics, literally, that are more like threads than they are anything like a vein. They're so incredibly small. And this fluid is in the tissues of your leg. People say a lot of times, that once you just lance it and get rid of this fluid, and that doesn't work any more than slicing a watermelon open, makes all the water pour out on the table. The water's caught in the tissue of your leg, is caught in the tissue of the watermelon, so it doesn't flow out everywhere when you slice it open. And it takes a good bit. So in treating it, and I've seen some very, very frustrated patients, as I know you have with this, there are several ways to go about treating lymphedema. Can you get us started talking about some of those?
Well, actually, over the years, I must say that it's being treated exactly the same as it was when I first got it, as far as doing manual lymph drainage. And that's a hands-on technique to move the fluid that's stagnant into a part of the body that actually works so you can eliminate it. We still wrap our legs with bandages, and there are doctors now, there are a few in the world, say exactly like Dr. Chin at the Cleveland Clinic, who do surgery on on lymphedema, lymphatics. And he's very fussy about who he does these on. You have to be, qualify, and you want to make sure it's successful. And like you said, a lymphedema, lymphatic, I'm going to lose it here. The lymphatic in your body is very thin. Think of like a thread. And here you got this surgeon who is taking these threads and putting them together and trying to put them into the venous system so that it will work. I mean, it's just fascinating to me.
It's almost inconceivable.
I know
the size that they're working.
Well,
with.
You should see it's like the microsurgery. They have the big, thick glasses on so they can see these little threads, and it's fascinating to me.
I think those are the same glasses that John wears to read the newspaper. I think that's what those are. So we've got the MLD, the manual lymphatic drainage. That's what most people refer to as massage technique,
right. It's a massage technique.
Massage. And it's not like going to a local place and getting a massage when your back hurts. It's a very different thing, but it is very targeted and it's very specific, and it can be very, very effective. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, Joan, it's something that you have to do on a schedule. Isn't that right?
Yes, you would make an appointment with a certified lymphedema therapist. I want to stress this. Patients should be going to somebody that's been certified in doing this type of manual lymphatic drainage. And their school is usually about 135 hours that they take just to learn this.
And what I meant by schedule is you have to do it repeatedly.
Yes. I mean, I went one time for, when I first learned about this, I went to the, I'm having a senior moment here, to Foldy Clinic in Germany. And I was there for 5 weeks, and they did therapy on me twice a day. Wow. And it was really effective. I
would think so. The problem has to be maintaining that schedule. That's got to be very, very difficult. So if we have massage and a number of different types of compression sleeves and hose, talk a little bit about if that's changed any over all these years. I really don't think it has much, but what people are doing for that kind of thing, whether it's arm or leg.
Well, over the years, that's the thing that has improved, I would say, the most is the, like if you have lymphedema and you don't want to wrap your leg at night, you could wear like a Tribute or a Circade or, there are products out there that you can actually wear that you don't have to bandage your leg anymore. And the quality of the garments is unbelievable. That's gotten a lot better.
Okay. And you mentioned something about at night. This is something that they would wear 24/7 or just during the day or just at night? How does that work usually?
Well, I think you would probably want to wear it just at night and wear your garment during the day. That would be the most comfortable thing to do.
Okay. So in that way, also, it's different from a vein problem.
Yes.
Because most people don't have to wear those when they're laying down because they don't build up fluid from the veins when they're not standing up. Other than surgeries that cause this, I know we mentioned children. I know some people are just born with a tendency to develop lymphedema. They're born without the usual amount of lymphatic drainage. Speak to that a little bit, if you would.
Well, we have children that are born with inferior or insufficient lymphatic systems. And if you can get diagnosed fairly early, and I think you can now, then the patient's parents, maybe grandparents, are all trained in how to do the massage therapy on these children. And the problem with children, though, is, they grow so fast. So a garment they may be able to only wear a garment for 2 or 3 months, and then they've outgrown it. So that's why we really feel a need to address the children this year.
So the childhood lymphedema that they're born with is called Milroy's disease.
Well, one of them. That's one of the many.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Is that inherited?
Um,
Does it run in families?
Yes, actually, I knew a family up in Michigan, and they had it was the father that had the lymphedema below his knees through his feet, and all their 4 children were born with it. So it is
Really?
Inherited.
Wow. Goodness. And so many people have surgery, and I suppose the most common one that you see and that you hear about and that we see is breast cancer and having swelling in the arm. And I've got too many patients that suffer with that. And they may go to a specialist around here or a massage person who I can't help but think is certified. I don't know for a fact because I haven't asked. But if they were to contact you, is there help for them through you that they may not be getting at?
I'm going to make it real easy for them. Our website has a list of certified lymphedema therapists. Just go in there, click on certified therapist, state of Georgia. You'll get as many as we know about. And outside Georgia in the southeast, we list those, both of them. So we try to, and it's no charge for these therapists to list. We just do this for the convenience of the patient.
And they're all certified, I'm sure.
Yes, they have to be certified. They have to tell us where they went to school, how many hours, and so forth.
Well, what does the future look like in lymphedema treatment? Is it more of the same, or is there something out there that's magically going to help, or what are we looking at for these people?
Well, my prayer is that eventually these surgeons, which there are very few in this world, will be able to do surgeries like they have LVA surgery, which kind of takes the lymphatics into the vein, and that this will be very successful to, we can't say cure, but at least make the patient more comfortable. Maybe they won't have to be bandaging, but I'm sure they're always going to have to wear a garment, and especially when they fly or travel. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm kind of an old cookie, so I'm kind of used to doing this, and my attitude is do what you have to do to work for yourself, what works for you. And I'm hoping, I just hate it when I hear that a child is born with lymphedema, but hopefully we will have research that will eventually help these patients.
I agree with that. I think that's a prayer I could get on with you as well. You mentioned wraps, and we didn't talk about wraps really specifically. I've had several patients that have done that, and their big advantage that I see is that the compression stockings and so forth are just so difficult to put on.
Oh.
But the wraps, I believe, are much easier. Tell me a little bit about that.
What's a rat?
A wrap.
Oh, a wrap. Oh, I thought you were saying rat like the animal.
I'll tell you what a rat is off air. Don't worry about that. We'll get into all that too.
Well, I have my leg wrapped right now, and if we were on a video, I could show you what it looks like. And I have to tell you, my 84-year-old husband wraps my leg when after I take a shower, he wraps my leg, and you should see what a good job he does. It's amazing. But they're not like they're low stretch bandages that we put on, and you multi-layer them up to make sure that you got enough pressure on your leg to maintain it. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and I think people need to know about that, because I can just imagine that people that have probably the less major lymphedema would be concerned about the effort involved with putting on.
People don't like to wrap their legs. I personally like my leg wrapped. It feels a lot better when I've got this compression on my leg.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to kick it over to John and see if John's had any questions come up or any comments.
Yeah. first of all, Joan, you're an inspiration. I mean, when we found out about you and your story and how you really are paying it forward to other patients, and after having suffered from this condition for all these years, it's just heartwarming. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. But talk about, and I want to get into the nonprofit here in just a second and how folks can help. But you mentioned your parents had suffered from lymphedema. Is there a hereditary aspect to this? Are some people more likely to get?
I've always felt, since my parents had this, although my mother had breast cancer and my dad had prostate cancer, but I think there's a tendency, I have a feeling in my family for inferior lymphatics. But my brother does not have it. My son does not have it. I don't know of any. Well, there was a cousin whose husband had it, but that's not related in my family. So, but I think there must have been a tendency in my family to have lymphedema.
Did the others in your family have surgery that might have caused it? Or
well, my mother, yes, my mother definitely had breast cancer. She had
your cousin and your brother.
No, my brothers never had.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is you may have exactly what you said.
Right.
A weakened, lesser than lymphatic system. And if you don't have surgery, it's not a gigantic problem. But if you do, where you might have some lymphedema, you might have a lot more lymphedema because your system wasn't quite as effective as another was.
Right. Well, see,
that's an interesting thing too.
I had my appendix had burst and gangrened into my colon, and immediately after I had that surgery to remove the appendix and part of the colon, I developed lymphedema. So that's why I'm thinking there is a tendency in my family to have lymphatic disease.
Interesting.
What is the I think in terms of just the research that we did on you and the work you do, one of the things that you're doing beyond just raising money for research is I think you're giving lymphedema patients someone to talk to, right? I mean, that's that maybe they're suffering and they don't know any other patients that have this, and you're giving them a forum and a home, really, aren't you?
Example, yesterday, a mother called me whose daughter has lymphedema. And lymphedema is, Dr. Morrow, have you heard of lymphedema? Do you get a patient with lymphedema? That's the fat. That's where you're like, you have the big hips, big legs, and their feet they're not compromised. They're normal feet. Anyway, this mother called, and they're definitely coming to our fall conference. And her daughter's in her 30s, and she has what's called Noonan disease, and that's a little rare. But she is, what does she do? She said Medicare won't help them. She has no insurance, and she's very frustrated because she wants to help her daughter. So I gave her a couple of ideas.
Good. Actually, I heard that term for the very first time about 10 minutes before we came on the air.
Oh.
Ironically.
Well, but you do this again and again. I mean, you talk to people all over the world, really. Well, before we came on the air, you were talking about a lady in Peru that you talked to. I mean,
the lady in Peru is actually a therapist.
Okay.
And what we do through our Bandages and Garments Fund is, this is almost sad and tragic, but in the United States, you cannot give your products that are slightly used or outdated to a clinic in the United States. So we have a clinic in Peru and a couple in South Africa that we send these products to.
Wow.
Bless you for doing that. And I probably would understand the reasoning behind not doing it in the States, but it's a crying shame.
It is.
Yeah.
Because I have new products that are outdated that I send 2 huge boxes just to South Africa. And there's probably not a thing wrong with them except they're outdated.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we heard about you, again, we did some research on you. The doctor at the Cleveland Clinic that you were talking about has said some remarkable things about you and your work and how important you are in the research into lymphedema.
It's our whole board. It's not one person. I'll tell you, we have the most dynamic board. We have no paid staff. They're all volunteers, and they all have a job that they do. Treasurer, secretary, file the applications for our fall conference so they can get the professionals can get credits. We have people who solicit speakers. I just can't even brag enough about our board. They're just wonderful. And when you have a board that is 20 to 25 people, that's a big board.
Yeah.
And we get together quarterly and have meetings, and just it's amazing what happens in these board meetings, how we just feed off each other.
Well, I've dealt with enough boards and tried to create boards in the past, and I will tell you that if you've got that many people and you've got a majority of them helping out and doing the things you're describing, that comes from the person at the top, because you are doing something to instill in these people the desire to help like that, because that's not just everybody. I can promise you.
I tell you, usually they stay on the board until they either move or die, and that's what's so sad. I feel bad.
Well, you can deflect that all you want, but I'm pretty sure where that starts.
Yeah,
I think that's wonderful, and the people in the area and apparently the world are very fortunate to have you working on this, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today and to do this. And I know John's glad to have company in the studio, because when I can't get there, he gets kind of lonely.
That's right. Well, we need to let Joan tell a little bit about where folks can find more information, website, what have you. And then we're recording this show here in September of 2022. You've got a conference coming up in October. Maybe you can give everyone a few details about that.
Oh, we would like all of you to come. You don't even have to have lymphedema. I just feel like it's one of these diseases that everyone should be knowledgeable about, because you may have your neighbor, you may have a family member, you may have a friend that'll develop this, and you can say, oh, I know all about that. Get on the website to Lighthouse Lymphedema Network, and you'll find out all that you need to know. And our conference is October the 22nd. We're holding it again at what is called the Roam, ROAM, at Perimeter. And this is across from the Perimeter Mall. It's a strip shopping center, and the Roam is located above Old Navy. And there's an elevator right there. So take the elevator, go up, get off, and the door to the Roam is right there, and it's free parking too, people.
There you go. And website? You want to give a website? LighthouseLymphedema.org.
Wonderful. That's great. And I do appreciate you taking the time, you being here. So, John, for now, that's to your health.